All right, we're back. Episode 23, Off the Edge. I'm Jake Ellenbogen. He is Cameron Lynch. And today we're continuing a very long series, the longest series I think we've ever done, the positional series. And we're going to be starting off today with the defensive linemen. So we're finally moving over to Cam's side of the ball, the defensive side of the ball.
The dark side, Jake.
And we're going to be talking about some guys that you may already know, you might not know. And, we spent a lot of time on this. We watched a lot of tape, and, I feel pretty good about my top 10. I know Cam feels good about his. So we'll unveil that soon. Cam, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Now, I'm most excited about this group, Jake. I think we were talking about it off air, but as playing a linebacker, the defensive linemen were my first line of defense, right? When you think about you going to war, you're going to battle, you bring out that sword, you bring out that armor, like the defensive line is, I would call it the armor, you know what I mean, when it comes to protecting yourself. So this is one of my favorite groups. We talk about film study. Like, I got excited watching these guys, taking notes. I'm taking more notes than normal, Jake. So that's how I knew this is my group. I'm really excited to talk about it.
Absolutely. Before we get into that, just letting you guys know that Bet Online is your number one source for all your basketball info, stats, news, and scores. Get the latest odds and lines and the latest matchup reports for this year's NBA playoffs. Bet Online is your sports intel headquarters this season, as we have you covered for all your insider sports wagering needs, from basketball, MLB, NHL, golf, to UFC and boxing. The fastest and easiest way to get your betting info, including live betting options and your favorite casino and card games available to play right from your home. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Be sure to use our promo code Bleav to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, where the games start. So, Cam, we're starting with honorable mentions here. And I have one that, unfortunately, we only played 10 games last year, dealt with injury. He's been just a model of consistency. This is somebody that really holds it down in the trenches, and a guy that plays kind of one of the more thankless nose tackle positions in the league. And this is DJ Reader of the Cincinnati Bengals. Played a little bit with the Texans to start his career, goes to the Bengals. I think he's a really good football player, and I had a hard time leaving him off this list. He's not really a household name as much as he should be, and so that's why it was hard to leave him off, because I love giving him his praise. But I was like, you know what? I'm not going to stress about it, because I have him in honorable mentions here, and I'm giving him his praise right now.
There you go. Let's not stress too much, right? A lot of times when we put out these lists, Jake, people are like, wait, what about this group? I know we were doing offensive line. I just got a message. What about the Panthers? Why are they not in your top 10? I think you had them in like your top 8. And I was like, don't worry, they're in the honorable mentions, right? we respectfully are bringing these guys up. One of the guys that I have on my honorable mentions, Jake, is Leonard Williams, right? Coming out of USC. I know the Jets was his first move. Now it's the Giants, and he's finding his way on that team. Some of the notes I have from Jake, and he's going through this study with these defensive linemen, right? Kind of seeing how they progress. With Leonard Williams, he was second in 2020, he was second in the league with sacks, right? With 13 sacks, crushing it there. First in the league in assisted tackles. So you kind of talk about some of these stats and what do they mean? I think with defensive linemen, of course, the first stat you want to see is sacks, right? So he progressed there a little bit. 13 sacks in 2020, actually digressed. 13 sacks in 2020, 8 sacks in 2021, and only 4 sacks in 2022. That's okay, but he's progressing as a player. And then also too, like I said, you call him Big Cat. So he's playing a position that sometimes when it comes to defensive tackles is people overlook it. Like, unless you're on the end, I'm not really paying attention to you like that. But Leonard Williams, just from the time he stepped into the league and to now, found his way on the top 100 players list as well. So I just want to recognize him here as he's growing at the defensive tackle position. But yeah, like I said, I got Leonard Williams as my honorable mention, and also Derek Brown, Jake. He's one of the guys, 6'5", 320 coming out of Auburn. He's one of my honorable mentions as well. First round pick, 7th pick overall. Some of the notes I have for him is great get off. He's getting off the ball really fast, high motor, and he's a young guy. So I'm excited to see what he's going to do in the league. But those are my honorable mentions there, Jake.
Yeah, he came out the same draft as Kinlaw, and I think he kind of got I think Kinlaw was the guy who had a lot of buzz coming in the draft, but Derek Brown was the guy who had better college tape, and I thought he was just a better prospect overall. So, yeah, we'll be talking about Derek Brown, spoiler alert, again, because he did make my top 10. But some honorable mentions here: Kenny Clark, Mr. Reliable. Old reliable with the Green Bay Packers, another nose tackle there. Dayron Payne of the Washington Commanders. Jonathan Allen of the Washington Commanders, who was initially in my top 10. I had a hard time leaving him out, but I did decide to leave him out. And then Vita Vea, who, I feel like he had a little bit of a down year last year. But, he's somebody, just the raw talent he possesses, that crazy, the body type that he has.
He doesn't wear gloves. He doesn't wear gloves, Jake. Like, you see the line that doesn't wear gloves. That's kind of scary. like the reason why I say that, Jake, because they're using their hands on every play against 300-pounders, or more so 600 pounds when you have two of them. And so the fact that you're taking that on with just your hands and your nails, think about the cuts and the scratches, your fingernails getting ripped off. Like, there's so many crazy things that can happen. So the fact that he doesn't use gloves, it's kind of crazy. You look at every D lineman, they have gloves on, but him. So he's a special one.
Yeah, that's nuts. I mean, I didn't wear batting gloves when I was playing baseball as a kid, but I think that's different. It's a lot different.
Yeah, I mean, you're hitting moonshots, Jake. I get it, right? You got that power like Aaron Judge. I get it, my man.
Okay. Appreciate it. No, I was more of a line drive. I'll steal second anytime I want type of guy. But
okay.
But we move on to the top 10. And starting off with number 10, and I want to hear who you got. I have Javon Hargrave now of the San Francisco 49ers. I think this is somebody that kind of gets lost a little bit in the shuffle. It's weird because when he signed with the Niners, it was so big. It was $20 million a year. Massive deal. Everyone knows who he is now because it's one, he's going to a massive organization. Everybody knows the 49ers. Number two, he's getting big time money. Three, he played in the Super Bowl. He's an incredible pass rusher, interior wise, coming out of, the HBCU, South Carolina State. The Steelers get him. Then he decides, you know what, I like Pennsylvania, but unfortunately, I'm not going to come back to Pittsburgh. I'm going to go to Philadelphia. Right. So he made his presence felt there. And now, here he is, coming off of 57 pressure, 11 sack season. He's heading over to the San Francisco 49ers. And, I mean, he has a chance to go up the rungs there because he's got guys like Bosa and Arik Armstead that's going to make his life a lot easier. But I have him at number 10.
Nice. I do too, Jake. That's a good call. And I actually had him in honorable mentions at first. And I started doing more research. I'm like, wait, he's the fourth highest paid defensive lineman. Like, you don't just pay somebody that money if you don't think he's great. And so I'm like, okay, this bump him up a little bit. And then you talk about the Super Bowl. He just came out of the Super Bowl. And I'm like, okay, bump him up even more, Jake. And you talk about just the elite level of defensive linemen that are at the 49ers now, but also think about the elite level defensive lineman that he was at with the Eagles. And so I think that's just value there, Jake, right? He's only going to make the 49ers that much better because he has that experience. And you mentioned coming out of HBCU, Jake, that's a big deal because it's a big deal, but a lot of the Hall of Famers are HBCU grads. But then also, too, he's a third rounder. Jake, we'll go through this list. And just through my research, I realized a lot of these guys are all first rounders, top 20 picks. This guy's a third rounder. So the fact that he made it this far to be the fourth highest paid defensive lineman, he had to jump up my list, Jake. So I got him at number 10. And like you said, he might jump up even more as time progressed. Some of the notes that I had when I was taking notes, like I said, I'm excited about these defensive linemen. Some of my notes is he plays with a chip. So we just talked about it coming from an HBCU, third rounder. That chip is ingrained. Second, he has a nasty first move. A lot of times with these guys, you see them come off the line of scrimmage and, they kind of figure out where they're going to place their hands. He's the type to throw the punch first, Jake. I don't know if you ever got in a fight before. I didn't fight much, Jake, unless on the football field. But in person, with these teeth, my guy, I don't know if I would fight. But a lot of times when you get in a fight, they say, throw the first punch a lot of the times, right? Or you'll figure that out. Like, if you get in a fight, throw the first punch. He's that type of guy. When you go to a party, you're in a dark alley, take a guy like Javon Hargrave with you because he's going to get nasty. You can see that in his gameplay. And, with him leaving the Eagles, Jake, just going back to the Eagles and what they've done, them getting Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith, it's now making sense why they got those guys. But I got Javon Hargrave as my number 10.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Number 9 is a first round pick. We talked about Derek Brown. I just am so impressed with the type of player he's become. And look, he doesn't get a lot of sacks, and I think that's going to be a reason why some people look at this like, huh? But I don't really care. I mean, this guy, first off, he had 40 pressures last year. Okay. That's more than Christian Wilkins, who we'll probably talk about. That's as much as Aaron Donald had in the first 11 games. So it's not, it's Aaron Donald would have had a lot more, obviously, but you got here's the thing though. He plays a different role. He's one of the best, if not the best run defender in the NFL. I mean, he's already so good against the run. And he just plugs up the gap. And, for me, when you look at Derek Brown, how young he is, he's only going to get better. And having him with Brian Burns on a defensive line, that is nasty. So he's number 9 for me, but I'm curious who's number 9 for you.
Yeah. I like that number 9, Jake. I'm going to talk about Derek Brown just a little bit more. And I'll share my number 9, but Derek Brown, one thing, just coming from the Panthers, just from my time playing against them, you got Thomas Davis and Luke Kuechly. Those guys run to the football. And not only them, but they also force the defensive linemen too. So like Julius Peppers, when he was playing there, old veteran, but you would see him on tape running to the football. That's one thing that the Panthers organization, they teach effort. And so for Derek Brown, that's one of my notes for him is he has relentless pursuit. And those words for a lot of times defensive coordinators, it gets there like, you get chills, you get bumps because a guy that's 6'5", Jake, 320 with relentless pursuit, like it's problems for everybody and their mother. You know what I mean? Anybody that's in that stadium, he's causing problems for. And like you said, he's a young cat, so he has more time to grow, playing with Burns as well. That's excellent. So Derek Brown, I love that pick. Like I said, I got him as my honorable mentions. My number 9, I got Jeffrey Simmons, Jake. Jeffrey Simmons. He's my number 9. He's the number 2 highest paid defensive lineman. So arguably he could be higher up on this list, but I got some other dogs, some other older gentlemen that I have up there. But Jeff Simmons coming out of the Titans, very impressive. One of the notes I have from him is he likes to talk shit, Jake, right? He likes to talk shit. There's some, and I appreciate that. A lot of times when it comes to defensive linemen, you want them to talk and be verbal. Think about like Aaron Donald, who's going to be in this list as well. He talks crap, but only if you mess with him. I think if you hold them, or if you kind of do something that's like illegal, he's like, all right, I'm gonna talk smack against you. You'll hear it on like the mic'd ups. But Jeffrey Simmons, he's talking complete smack. I think you just like on the top 100 list, people would say is like his mentality is like, I'm bigger than you, I'm stronger than you, and I'm gonna run through you, right? And so he takes that into his gameplay. We talk about his stutter bull rush is kind of dangerous because he hits you with that stutter, kind of lulls you asleep and gets you set on your heels as an offensive lineman. And he hits you with that bull rush, and then he just driving you back to the quarterback. You get the offensive lineman gets pancaked, the quarterback gets sacked, and everyone's upset. But I got for him in 2021, he was second in the league with 11 sacks. Jake, that's why he's number 2. That's why he's number 2, the highest paid defensive lineman. And then I had him with 88th with 44 tackles. So that's darn impressive. And as you'll see here on the list, tackles don't necessarily mean you're the best defensive lineman, because you'll see some of the best defensive linemen don't have that many tackles, but they have more sacks than tackles. But then in 2022, he was 9th in sacks with 8, and then and also 8th in forced fumbles with 1. So Jeffrey Simmons, he's my guy at number 9.
And he's 7th in pressures. So, this is definitely, somebody that can get after it, can rush the passer. You'd like him to be a little bit better, obviously, in the run game, but he's still a good player, good enough. Yeah. So number 8 for me is Christian Wilkins, who I did say earlier that I think Derek Brown could be the best against the run, and he certainly is up there, but if it's not him, then it could be Christian Wilkins. And, I think Wilkins is somebody who is probably going to get dinged a little bit by just the common folk. One, who might not really know who he is. 2, they heard that 30 pressures he's not pass rusher, right? I would say he is an electric run stopper. He is a guy. He's a gap filler, gap eater. Very likable guy from his story at Clemson, and first round talent. He's going to be on that big time Miami defense that just continues to load up. And I just think he deserves mention. He's 8th for me. He could have been a little bit higher. He could also been a little bit lower. I decided to settle down at 8th. I think that's a good spot for him.
Yeah, no, Christian Wilkins. I remember him when he was at Clemson. So he was one national championship. I think we talked about this before we were on air, but he did the splits, right? Like, it's like, wait, if you're 6'4", 310 and you're doing the splits, like what's going on here, buddy? And so, some of the notes I have from him, he's just super athletic. You'll see on his tape, he has a crazy swim move. Like, he'll hit somebody with a stutter, bull, and then hit him with the swim move, and then he's off to the races. And the only thing about the swim move, Jake, is having a great swim move can cost you, because when you do that swim move, you open up those ribs, and that's where that contact comes in, and you're on your back, and you get pancaked yourself. So, he's perfected that, though. And another thing you mentioned, his personality. He's a captain of the team. So that just goes to show he's a leader in his own right. First round, 13th pick. He's leading that team, and that's dang on impressive, Jake, when you're a defensive lineman leading your team. And that can go to your quarterback, it can go to your linebacker or whoever, but it goes to defensive lineman. So that goes to show where he is. And yeah, put him at number 8 because he is a leader. Going to some of his stats, Jake, in 2020, he was 6 in total tackles with 40. Pretty decent. In 2021, he was 1st in tackles, Jake, with 56 of them. 4th in assists. He was 19th in sacks. So, had to pick that up a little bit the next couple of years. But in 2022, last year, Jake, 1st in tackles as a defensive lineman. So this is why he's number 8 on our list. And then he was also 1st in assists, so 26. And a lot of times I kind of break down these assists, Jake, where as a defensive lineman, you're not always going to get to the football. So if you're number 1 in assists, that means you're running to the football, right? Relentless pursuit. And that's effort at the end of the day. And those assists, those are all effort tackles. And then 8th and 4th forced fumbles. So only 5 sacks, like you mentioned, not many sacks, but at the end of the day, these guys are built to stop the run and cause some pressures, Jake. So I got Christian at my number 8.
Oh, we both had him at number 8. Oh, yep. Cool. Yeah, so we both had Javon Hargrave at 10. We both had Christian Wilkins at 8. I have DeForest Buckner at 7. Nice. The former 49er. Then he gets traded to the Colts. They get Kinlaw. The Colts get the better player. Everybody wins, right? Yeah. Look, DeForest Buckner has just been consistent as all hell. I mean, he really has. He's one of the best players on the Colts. He's one of the best defensive linemen in the league. I'm a big fan of him. I always have been. And I just remember watching just that crazy frame he has. Just watching him out of Oregon. He's just a model of consistency. And I don't know how, but a 295 pounder, 6'7". I mean, the guy's super athletic. And, I just look over the years. He has 59 sacks since 2016. Some might not look at that as a big deal. He started off a little slow in that sack department. He's had 2 double-digit sack seasons. He had 1 year at 13, but then his last 2, he's had 9. So he's been consistent, and every year, PFF seems to have him in like the upper, the high area of this position as far as grades. So when you watch the tape, I mean, you can see this guy, he doesn't give up a lot of missed tackles. I feel like he's gotten better each year in the tackling department, like vice grip for hands. And so, I just look at him. He can help you against the run. He can, he's not the best run defender in the league, but he's a solid run defender. But he's a really good pass rusher. And him next to Grover Stewart on that Indy, defensive line, it's pretty nuts, and it works out for them. So I have DeForest Buckner at 7.
I like it. I actually had DeForest Buckner at number 6, Jake. So I'm gonna chat about him a little bit now as well. You said he's 6'7", Jake. He's the tallest guy on the field, right? You look on you turn on the tape, he's the biggest guy out there. So the fact that and I think we mentioned this we talked about our receivers. A lot of times when you're that tall as a receiver, sometimes it doesn't work, even as a defensive lineman. Some of the notes I have for DeForest Buckner is sometimes he gets knocked back a little bit because he's so dang tall, right? The first step he takes, he wants it to be low, but it's not going to be as low as a center or a guard who is 6'2", you know what I mean, who's naturally getting out of the stance. So those are some of the notes I have for him. But like you said, he's always been super consistent and successful. And I think that's the biggest compliment. You think about Calais Campbell as well, who is about 6'7" as well, 6'8", a huge guy. And they're both super consistent in their gameplay. DeForest Buckner, I have, like you mentioned, in 2022 and 2021 with 9 sacks. So he ranks 6th in the league, 7th in the league. So that's where he falls on this list, right? I feel like I want to say the sacks kind of show where you rank on this list, but in the league, he was 6th or 7th in the league in sacks. And then in tackles, Jake, when we talk about 2022 as of last year, he was 3rd in tackles with 50. So that's daggone impressive. You talked about those vice grip hands. He's so tall, no one's really getting away from him. There are some players though that are tall and can't make those tackles, but when he gets that hand out there, he's grabbing someone and bringing them to the ground. So I got DeForest Buckner as my number 6, Jake, and I'm going to pass it to you, and I'll talk about my number 7 after you talk about your number 6.
Yeah, so my number 6 is Jeffrey Simmons.
Nice.
And, I think when you look at Simmons' game, consistency, again, not the best run defender, more of a pass rusher, had 53, pressures last year as a pass rusher, interior wise, that's 7th in the league. And so, when I look at him, he just got a big payday, mainly because he just played 840 snaps and did at a high level on a team that, what's the direction there, right?
Yeah.
So instead of that, he wants to be a leader. He wants to be a part of this movement. He had every opportunity to bail, but he's sticking with the Titans. I just think at the end of the day, and coming out of the draft, you just knew it. He's just another one of those very athletic interior defensive linemen. And what we're starting to see, and I'm not saying everybody has this origin, but we're starting to see over time is that defensive line, they're getting paid a lot of money. Guys want to be defensive linemen. They'd rather force the contact instead of getting the contact forced on them. And so, I think you've seen it where, tight ends that are 6'6" or whatever are moving to the defensive line, and that athleticism is really helping them and guiding them. It's not to say that Simmons has done this, but there are guys in the draft that we talked about that have. And so I think we're starting to see more and more of that. And I think that's why the athleticism is starting to really jump off the page now, especially because Aaron Donald kind of changed the position in the league, right? What we found is that it's easier to get your hands on a Patrick Mahomes by collapsing the pocket right in front of him so he can't step up than having guys on the outside pressuring him. Doesn't mean the outside pressure doesn't matter. Doesn't mean the edge defenders don't matter. But if you have an elite pass rusher that can come up the middle, it makes it incredibly difficult, especially when you have edge defenders that are winning their battles, because then you have nowhere to go.
You have nowhere to go, Jake. And the quickest way to get from one point to the other point is a straight line from A to B. And when you're lined up over the ball, you're getting to that point in the quickest manner. If you're coming from the edge, that line's gonna be a little bit longer. But when you're right over the ball, that line's shorter. And a guy like Aaron Donald, like you said, he's so athletic and he's getting to that point so quick. It doesn't matter who else. It doesn't matter who's around him, but that's why you pay him so much money. That's why he's top on the list here. So you're spot on there, Jake. When it comes to Jeffrey Simmons, he's, like I said, he's someone to pay attention to no matter where he is. He's in Tennessee, so he has no state income tax, so he's seeing a lot of that money, right? We talk about the business of sport. That's a big deal, Jake, to be one of the top guys. And you mentioned he stayed there. He stayed there probably because he can see a lot of his money, right? But you think about someone like Javon Hargrave, who's going to the 49ers now. You're going to San Francisco, you're getting paid $21 million. He probably going to only see about 16, 15 of that $1 million, Jake. California state tax is crazy. It's like 53%, I think, on the income tax. So 50% of that 21, that's close to half. So it hurts my soul even saying that, Jake. It hurts my soul even saying that. But The reason why I bring it up is Simmons probably stayed in Tennessee is because he's going to see more of that money. He's the second highest paid defensive lineman, 23 mil. He's going to see 20 mil, 19 mil, more than just half. So there's a business side to some of these reasons here, or these moves. But my number 7, Jake, I know we talked about my number 6 being DeForest Buckner. My number 7, I had Jonathan Allen, Jake, coming from the Washington football team. And what I'm seeing here, Jake, is a lot of these guys come from the SEC. If you want to be, it feels like if you want to be successful at the defensive line position, go to the SEC, play football, gain some weight, and be explosive and get some sacks. Because, I mean, literally a lot of these guys on this list are all coming from the SEC or coming from the South. I mean, you're getting some Oregon, you're getting some Ohio States, but other than that, these guys are from the down South. And Jonathan Allen coming out of Alabama, he's a captain as well, Jake. I know I always have to call that out, but when you're a defensive lineman, you're a captain, that says a lot, right? That means you're breaking down huddles. That means you're running the show for your team. And it always starts up front. So it's cool to see that. Some of the notes I have for him, when he's on that top 100 list is, I think Jason Kelsey was saying it, but guys like Jonathan Allen are super scary. And like offensive linemen don't like to block guys like that because they have that combination of power and speed, and it's just confusing. Yeah, Jonathan Allen likes to confuse his offensive linemen. And so Jason Kelsey was saying that he's like, man, this is a scary business. I don't like blocking guys like this because we don't know what we're going to get. Some of the notes for Jonathan Allen, the reason why I do have him on this list, Jake, in 2022, he was first in forced fumbles. So a lot of times you'll see what separates these defensive linemen from their stats are core sacks. You get paid to sack the quarterback and cause pressures, but also forced fumbles. When we get to the top of this list, you'll see Aaron Donald. My man has a lot of forced fumbles, but Jonathan Allen, first in forced fumbles in 2022, ninth in sacks with 8 of them. 6 in solo tackles with 44. So that means he's running to the football. Like I said, we'll go back up to Aaron Donald's numbers. And he was first in a lot of these lists, right? Assists, tackles, and sacks, and forced fumbles. So to see Jonathan Allen doing that, that's why I wanted him on this list here. 2021, he was 4th in sacks with 10, which is really impressive. And then in 2020, he was 3rd in tackles with 43 and assists with 17. So he's consistently producing, tackling the football, sacking the quarterback, and getting the football back for his team. So Jonathan Allen, number 7 on my list, Jake.
I mean, you got him and you got Daron Payne on the same defensive line. If Chase Young comes alive this year, there's a big chip on his shoulder now because they declined his 5th-year option. And then you have Montez Sweat. Oh, man, that defensive line. If Chase Young stays healthy, that defensive line is horrifying. Yeah. I really like Jonathan Allen. I was close to having him on my list. I actually went back and forth, took him on, had him on, took him off, had him back on, took him off. So it's like not that easy, but it does. And the reason it's like that is because we live in such a healthy defensive line world right now. I mean, there's so many really talented players in the defensive line. There's no shortage of really talented players. And that goes for Quinnen Williams, who's my number 5. You look at what he's doing with the Jets and why they're so, quick to try and be like, hey, we want to get this deal done because we want to go win Super Bowls. We want you to be around. We don't want to get rid of you. Quinnen Williams is awesome. He really is. He is just such a talent. 52 pressures last year, 8th in the league, 13 sacks. I think really the big thing with him is, that he is just consistent. I don't really have to worry about him as a run defender or a pass rusher. He does it both. He's really good on both sides. What you'll find is guys on the list that were below him might have been better pass rushers, might have been better run defenders, but it was one or the other. They're not great at either. He's great at both, in my opinion. And so I look at somebody like Quinnen Williams is, okay, this guy is, he's in the top 5. We're talking about the upper echelon elite guys, starting with the top 5. I'm going with Quinnen Williams here.
I like it. I actually had him at my number 4, Jake. So whenever you talk about your number 4, then I'll talk about my number 5. But Quinnen Williams, another Alabama guy. Here we go again. These guys are dominating the defensive line room, clearly. One of the notes I have for Quinnen is truck. Like all caps, this man is a truck. He's also a leader of that team as well. He brings the energy. he'll have the memes, right, where he's sneezing and blessing himself, like in interviews. Like he's a great person to have in your organization. And you talk about getting his contract finished. That's extremely important. They locked in Aaron Rodgers. They locked in the receivers, Lazard. They locked in folks like that. But Quentin Williams, like you said, defense wins championships. And if you start with your defensive line or finish with your defensive line, right? Because they started with Aaron Rodgers, but finish with your defensive line, I think they're going to be happy. A man 6'3", 300 pounds, force to be reckoned with. I have, like you said, he had 13 sacks this past year, which was excellent. He was first in forced fumbles with 2 of them. Like we talked about, the guys that are at the top of this list are at the top in the forced fumbles and getting that football back. Back in 2021, he was 11th with 7 sacks. So that's pretty dang good, Jake. And he pretty much doubled his numbers this year. He knew this was contract year, right, in 2022. So he was like, hey, let's go ahead and double these things up. In 2020, he was 6th in sacks with 8 of them, and 10th in tackles with 37, and 2nd in forced fumbles with 2. So, Jake, I think as people will see, as people listen, all these guys are at the top of the list. When you think about that receipt that you get for a player, hey, what am I getting? Oh, I'm getting number 1 in pretty much every single category. That's why he's up here. So I got Quentin Williams as my number 5, and I'll pass it to you, Jake, to talk about your number 4.
So, yeah, I mean, I think you and I both like Quentin Williams a lot, obviously, if we both have him at 5. Number 4 is a guy that I think is somehow, some way underrated, and that is Cameron Hayward. Now, Hayward is just somebody, I mean, he's got 559 pressures for his career. He just had the most sacks he's had in a season since 2017 with 12. And, the guy has had at least 50 pressures in almost every season he's played in. Just a model of consistency. I feel like I keep saying that. A big reason why this position is so important. You need guys to be consistent up front. But Cameron Hayward doesn't go away. He just continues to fall down the consensus top 10s, but he doesn't get any worse. And I'd argue he's somehow getting a little bit better even. What he's done, it's allowed guys like Alex Highsmith to thrive. It's allowed guys like TJ Watt to come out and immediately make an impact. It allowed guys like Javon Hargrave to grow because Hargrave was on that defensive line. And it's why every single year it seems like, the Steelers grab an interior defensive lineman since they lost Hargrave, and they just work. And I feel like that has more to do with Hayward on the defensive line than anything. So this is me planting my flag. Cam Hayward, number 4. I just think he does not get enough credit. And I don't know what I mean by that. I mean, I'm sure he gets credit, but like when I see him not even in the top 5, like I just think it's because he's not ultra athletic. He's not this sexy guy. He's not new, right? He's been around since 2011. But he's just continued to stay in that top 5 range. And look, he's getting older. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we're all getting older every day. He's 34 though, right? But it doesn't mean just because he's 34 that I don't want to put him, in the top 5 or the top 10. And I mean, I'm seeing him way too often, way down the list. And I'm just like, I understand you're excited. You're excited about the young, youthful exuberance of a Daron Payne, a Jonathan Allen, a Vita Vea, even Derek Brown. But if you're putting those guys on the list over him, I think that you're jumping the gun.
Yeah, jumping the gun, Jake. You called it. You jumping the gun. Cameron Hayward, Jake, you said playing since 2011. That's almost 10 to 12 years of football at the defensive line position. Like doing anything for 10 to 12 years in general is a lot. Like, wow, bravo for you. But the fact that he's playing defensive line, that's tough. That's almost worse than like running back. Jay, we talk about the lifespan of a player. Running backs have a short lifespan. Defensive linemen, bro, they go through it. So the fact that he's been consistently at the top, 6'5", 295 coming out of Ohio State. You talk about consistent, Jake. I have on my notes teach tape. You cut Cam Hayward on, it's teach tape. I think you want to teach a young defensive lineman how to play football, how to play defensive line, where to be, what to do. Cut on Cam Hayward, right? He's been doing it for a long time. So he's seen the game change, evolve, and he's always been there. I'm not saying like, he might be a Hall of Famer, he might not. I'm not sure, Jake, but the type of play he puts out there is worthy of it. And I'm not going to say he's a LeBron James, right? Because you talk about LeBron James, how he's extended his career through many generations, or your Tom Brady, where he's seen it all. Cam Hayward is like one of those just old vets in the game where it's like, man, you play how many years? You survived how long? And you were at the top of the list for that many. Like that's super impressive. And I'm just going to chat through some of the stats, Jake. You talk about 12 sacks this past year, right? The most he's ever had. That's super impressive. He knows he's getting a little bit older, so he's like, you know what? Let me put some numbers up on the board on you, young cat. So I like that from him. 8th in tackles with 42, Jake. 10th in assists with 19. So the fact that he is in the top 10 in tackles at that age, he's running to the football. He's where he needs to be. He can play every position. He can be on the outside, the inside. He can do it all. So like I said, teach tape. If you want your child to play well as a defensive lineman, cut on Cam Hayward's tape, and you're going to see them do that. In 2021, Jake, he was first in tackles with 56. Come on, fam. You're 10, you're 11 in the league, and you're first in tackles as a defensive lineman and 6 in assists, and he's second in sacks back then. So that's 11 sacks, 2021. So like you said, all I'm seeing from him, he's getting better and better each year, and you got to respect the OG like this. I know we're going to talk about defensive ends pretty soon, but you got guys like Von Miller who may not be getting as many sacks as other people, but he's just seasoned, and we know what he can bring to the table. So a guy like Cam Hayward, respect to him. I got him at my number 5, Jake.
So just to add a quick thing for Cam Hayward, the guy averages 5.4 missed tackle percentage for his career. I Bleav, I don't have confirmation on this part because, we're recording and I just brought it up. I Bleav that's the highest among all active interior defensive linemen.
4%.
Let's put it this way.
That's crazy.
5.4%, right? Aaron Donald is 10%. Missed tackle percentage. Dexter Lawrence is 6.6%. Jeffrey Simmons is 12.6. Chris Jones, 18.
What's DeForest Buckner? Is he up there on that list?
That I'll check that right now, actually.
Okay. Yeah.
DeForest Buckner, 8.2. So yeah, I think Cam Hayward
that's insane.
The de facto number 1 in terms of, fewest missed tackles currently active in the NFL.
That gave me chills, Jake. That's kind of crazy, bro. And you're 10 years in the league, and you're 10 years, 12 years in the league, and you don't that's your missed tackle percentage, bro. That's guys are getting faster, stronger. That's crazy.
He has 1 year over 10. But it's 4.7, 3.7, 4.9, 4.7, 8.1, 5.9, 5.8, 2.3, 7.8, 0, and 0.
Sick. That's sick.
He's only missed 30 tackles in his career. When you think about that, he's played all those seasons. Donald's missed 44. Okay. Dexter Lawrence has already missed 14 in his first 4 seasons. Jeffrey Simmons has missed 23 in his first 4 seasons, right? So then you look at Chris Jones. He's already missed 39. And then you have DeForest Buckner, who's missed 36. So, yeah, Cameron Hayward does not get enough credit. And
yeah, that's is that Hall of Fame? Can we put the man in the Hall of Fame at this point?
That's what I was getting at, is that Cameron Hayward, no doubt about it, is a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
There will be players that get kind of overlooked because of Donald's reign, essentially. He's not one of them that should get overlooked. I think the guys making the decision, even though Torrey Holt's not in the Hall of Fame for whatever reason, and countless others, they can't screw that up. Cam Hayward is going to make the Hall of Fame, probably first ballot, I would imagine. He's incredible. He just doesn't get enough credit. And again, it's probably because he's in the same era as Aaron Donald. If Aaron Donald didn't exist right now, Cam Hayward's probably the most all-around best defensive lineman. There might be better pass rushers, but yeah. But anyway, it has become the Cam Hayward show.
Yeah, put a pin in it. That's impressive, Jake. That's really impressive. After that, I might have to move him up on my list a little bit at this point. Dang.
Well, it's funny because I kind of discredited the three guys that are ahead of him in a way, but I didn't mean to discredit them, just to actually show you that Cam Hayward's missed tackle percentage is insane. Number 3 is Dexter Lawrence. And, this one's interesting for me because I kind of thought up until this year, I didn't think he was that great. I thought this was kind of a bust pick, 6'4", 342, big guy coming out of Clemson. Didn't really like the pick. He's 25 years old. And then all of a sudden, I don't know what happened, but this year he just came alive. This past year, he was the number 1 graded interior defensive lineman according to PFF in 2022. He was just pretty much great at everything. But what surprised me is that while he's more of a run defender, he became an elite pass rusher this year out of that interior spot. 63 pressures coming from the nose tackle spot, 9 sacks. The missed tackle percentage, which it was at 10.3 this year, that is a career high. I just think also what you have to remember, and it's probably why Donald's was so high, is that when you are pursuing as a pass rusher, you're more likely to put yourself out of the play. And so if you get there quick, and you get there too quick, you can overshoot it. And so it's almost like your dominance almost hurts you. And I feel like we've seen that with Donald. Dexter Lawrence, man, shout out to him because I did not see that. His first 3 seasons, I thought he was kind of, all right, he's going to stick around. He's going to be a solid player. I understand that'll be probably some blowback for me having him at number 3. But I think going into 2023, this guy's the 3rd best interior defensive lineman. Right now, the season he just had, I have to assume that's who he is now.
Yeah, no, that's it. You're only as great as your last game or your last season, I would say, quote unquote. And Dexter Lawrence had a crazy jump last year, Jake. You talked about it. 9 sacks. He's 7th in sacks with that. So, hey, got to pay attention a little bit. We talk about tackles. He had 45 tackles. He's 5th in tackles. Talk about forced fumbles. He was 1st in forced fumbles. So, the numbers, they don't lie. At the end of the day, they don't lie. Dexter Lawrence coming out of Clemson. We talk about being coming from down south. He's a captain of that team, Jake. So that's another bump, right? He's an energy guy. He's a dancer. He's gonna end up on your highlight tape. The kids in the stadium are gonna start dancing the way he dances because he just brings that level of gravitas to the game. And then we talk about it in 2021, and just kind of, he hasn't been leading the pack, but he's been consistent. We talk about the tackles. He was 15th in tackles with 40 of them. In 2021, he was, in 2020, he was 10th in tackles with 37, 14 assists. So, like I said, he's been consistent, Jake. He has never popped off the page, but this past year, probably the best year of his career. And you can't deny him at this point. You can't deny him. His numbers are too good. You can't deny him. So I got Dexter Lawrence, Jake, at my number 3 as well. And the way, also too, I'm going to say this, the way that the Giants emerged, making the playoffs. Of course, you got Daniel Jones, you got the big contract, you got your coaches, and you got all that greatness, Saquon. But think about on the defensive side, how are they doing so well on the offensive side? Because you got a guy like this causing havoc and getting the football back. They made the playoffs, they made a deep run, and you gotta attest some of that to Dexter Lawrence. So shout out to him. He's my number 3.
Yeah, and kind of like what you said earlier, as a linebacker, these are the guys that this is your armor essentially. And so it makes guys' lives easier in the back end. Maybe it's the secondary, maybe it's the linebackers. It doesn't really matter. It's going to make the defense better. You build from the inside out in the NFL. Not a lot of teams got that memo, but you're supposed to build from the inside out. And I think these next 3 guys, and we just talked about Lawrence, definition of building inside out. You want these guys, if you're going to start a team, you want these 3. So number 2, we have the same 1-2. Number 2 is Chris Jones. The guy is an absolute animal. Look, he just basically, okay, Donald, you're out of commission. I'll take over. And so that's what he did this year. 77 pressures. He's had 414 for his career since 2016. That's a whopping amount there. 15 sacks. He had 10 the previous year, 8, 9, 16 going back to 2018. He has been so good as a pass rusher, so dominant. My biggest concern with him, his missed tackles, man. We talked about 18% missed tackle rate for his career. He's in the double digits every single season. So I think once he gets that down where if it clicks at any point soon where all of a sudden now he's this dominant tackler, I just don't know if Donald's not going to be around forever. He'll be the best defensive lineman in football when Donald's out, but I do think that missed tackle thing is eventually it's going to have to get better because, and I will say that to his defense, this past year for the year prior, but you'd like to see that better. And what I will say is he just played by far the most snaps he's ever played in a season with 915, Cam. The year previous, okay, the most he's ever had was 773 back in 2018. So for the most part, he's been around the 600s, 915 snaps, 620 pass rush snaps. They think the world of him, and they've given him a load, and he's taking it on.
Yeah, well, hey, he can thank Patrick Mahomes for that, right? He's probably playing in the postseason a lot more, so his reps are increasing, his conditioning will have to increase, and I think that's what we're seeing, Jake, is some of these defensive linemen that play at a high clip, like Chris Jones, who I have as my number 2 as well. He's 6'6", 310, so I'm sure a lot of times he's running on and off the field to get some air. What I would like to see this next year, like you said, to turn that corner is to increase those tackles, my man, because when it comes to that list, he's kind of at the bottom tier of the list, or maybe a little bit lower than the middle section. And for a guy that's, number 2 on our list, you kind of want to see that get a little bit better. Some of the guys that we talked about, number 10, number 9, you go back to Cameron Hayward. They're leading the league in tackles because they're doing the little things right. I think you get guys like Chris Jones. I played with Chandler Jones, actually. Think about Jones's. And Chandler always say, I'm the sack man, right? Sack man. Yeah, that's me. And I think Chris Jones is the same way, where he's going to play football and he's looking to get sacks. Don't talk to me unless I'm sacking the quarterback, right? Everybody else can tackle, but I'm looking to sack the quarterback. And not saying that that's his mentality, but I would love to see, him take a note from Cameron Hayward's page. Like, hey, let me tighten up on my tackles a little bit. So that was a little disappointing, but Chris Jones, he's one of those players, Jake, we talk about home run ability for running backs. That's him as a defensive lineman. You see his hand placement. He's 6'6", 310, Jake. He's one of the bigger guys outside of Buckner, but he places his hand so perfect on people. Sometimes it's not even funny. It's like, wait, how did you get that placement? And so his hand placement is kind of crazy. He moves people around like it's nobody's business. So, like I said, I have for my notes for him crazy playmaking ability. 15 sacks last year. He was first. He was first in forced fumbles. The year before that, he was second in forced fumbles with 2. He was 6th in sacks. My man, he'd be crushing it, Jake. So I know you have your number 1, who's probably my number 1 as well. So excited to finish it off with that.
Yeah, you played with him. It's Aaron Donald. Yeah. I think he's the greatest player of all time. I know, everyone calls Tom Brady the GOAT, but who's the better player? I think there's never been a more dominant player than Aaron Donald, period. We've always had, is Peyton Manning a better regular season quarterback than Tom Brady? That's actually been an argument. Like Aaron Rodgers, right? That's always been a regular season argument. I feel like the GOAT has that conversation's all about rings, for people. But when it comes to Aaron Donald, he is the most dominant player because there's never a question of who the best freaking guy is at that position. The only question is he better than LT all time? I think he's better than anybody, really. I've never seen a guy where when he's on the field, it feels like he's just a animation that's faster than everyone else in a video game. It's honestly incredible. He just looks so different. It's like you took a 6'1", 280-pound interior defensive lineman, you jacked up his speed, acceleration, and his athleticism, agility to 99, and that's what happens when you use him in Madden or whatever. So, look, Aaron Donald, 705 pressures for his career since 2014, 110 sacks. Up until this past year where he got hurt and it was just a complete down season just for everybody. He still was having a good year. His worst of his career probably, but still before that, 15 sacks, 14 sacks, 21, 12. He's been unbelievable. And, I just think when you look at, 22 forced fumbles, this is just, if you were going to build your team around anybody in their prime, you're normally going to pick a quarterback. But if you have a chance to get Aaron Donald, you actually have to make a a true decision on that. And that's the thing that's crazy to me, is that Aaron Donald got to the point where he's better. He's almost as big as a quarterback, depending on who you're looking at. Yeah. And that's how you know he's number one. And he's by far number one. I think Chris Jones, he had a really good year and took off with, Donald out of commission. But nothing changed, my friend. Aaron Donald is not leaving number one until he's out of the league.
Yeah, no, I think Jake, I think he's going to get better. That's the scary part. You talk about him being the best of all time. I'm going to agree. I'm going to say second because Tom Brady, talk about the quarterback thing. I'm going to say Tom Brady, but I think Aaron's second of all time. And Jake, can you show us what kind of jersey you have on, the Laker jersey, really quick? Is that a LeBron James?
No, it's Westbrook.
Oh, okay. I thought it was a LeBron James jersey, but think about guys like LeBron. Aaron is doing, I think we're lucky because we're living at the same time LeBron is living, and we're living the same time that Aaron Donald is living. Aaron Rodgers, but it's two in the same, right? You think about your Michael Jordan, you think about your LT, whatever, or whoever else, right? You think about your LeBron
and Aaron Judge. Aaron
Serena
Judge.
Williams, Michael Phelps. There's so many.
Aaron Judge is 6'7". Aaron Donald, diving into the wall to make a diving catch or whatever, and then hitting 62 home runs. We're living in a really good era of sports. Mm-hmm. And I just think Donald, instead of being annoyed that, okay, he's number one, I don't like the Rams or whatever, just appreciate greatness. Cause a guy like that, we hear it all the time during the draft circuit. Oh, it's the next Aaron Donald. There isn't a next Aaron Donald. We're probably never going to see anything like this again because his work ethic is as big as his athleticism. And that is something that can't be said for a lot of these guys. Oh, yeah, the work ethic's there, but they don't have the athleticism. They have the athleticism, but they don't have the work ethic. Donald has both. And I don't know if anybody works as hard as he does, just based on some of the videos we've seen. Wow. But
mic drop, Jake.
Mic drop. But that brings us to our last point in this show. We're going to give a happy birthday again. It's a Ram, man. It's the best guy who was born on June 5th in NFL history, and it's not really close. It's Big Game Torrey Holt, who should be in the Hall of Fame. He turns 47 today. Happy birthday to Big Game Torrey Holt out of North Carolina State. He joined the greatest show on turf and didn't miss a beat. The guy had 788 yards his first year, then had 1,600 yards, which was one of the best seasons of his career, his second year in the league. Finished with over 13,000, had 74 touchdowns, had 920 receptions. He played the majority of his career with the Rams, 10 years, then played 1 year with the Jaguars. And I think he signed with the Patriots, but he didn't really do anything there. I don't think he made a team or anything like that. But Torrey Holt belongs in the Hall of Fame. He's a good dude, and he never fixed, fun fact, his dislocated pinky. He still has that, or whatever finger he dislocated. He still has that, and it's gross, but I respect it. Yeah,
battle wounds. Happy birthday to Torrey Holt. Great family. His brother's great. He's great. Enjoy the day.
So that's going to do it. We hope you guys enjoyed this defensive line episode. Next time, we'll have the edge defenders. It's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of guys to talk about, a lot of very talented, very athletic guys. So tune in for that. Be sure to subscribe, rate, review, all of that. Special thanks to Bet Online. You can go follow me at Jake Ellenbogen. You can follow Cam at CameronLynch50. And you can follow the channel at Off the Edge Show. We'll see you guys later. Take care.
Peace.